Hello and welcome back to the MLB DFS slate breakdown for Tuesday, June 24th. We got a big slate. It's Dinger Tuesday, and there's going to be a lot of home runs today. We got some nice home run weather. I'm your host, Tyler Wiemann. Come join us at LineStar. $39.99 per month gets you access to all we do, the props, the DFS. You get it all for one low price. Now, let's jump in. We're going to start off by the perfect lineups from yesterday, the winning lineups, then get into today's contest by going the pitchers to consider and some stacks. Now, let's jump over to those perfect lineups. So starting on DraftKings, we got Brian Wu and E-Rod went nuts. Then we had a two-man Arizona stack, two-man Pittsburgh, two-man Washington. J-Rod got it done. ELDC got it done. And the winning lineup goes to Isabel, 1974. They won by 13. They had Wu. They had E-Rod. Cal Riley continued that hot streak. They had a four-man Seattle stack, three-man Arizona with a one-off of Gavin Lux. Congrats to Isabella. Got it done. Now, on to FanDuel. Perfect lineup over here. We're going to see E-Rod as the pitcher with Pavin Smith. Looks like a good old one-off. Perfect lineup. 348.3. And the winning lineup went to Destroyer62, who had 271.8. They had E-Rod. They had three-man Seattle, two-man Washington with a one-off of Perdomo, Machado, and Nick Gonzalez. Congrats to them. Let's jump into today's slate. See what we can uncover. See what we like. See what we don't like. Our high-owned pitchers. We got Bubic, Valdez, Peralta, Castillo, Garrett Crochet, Strider, all throw in there, all 16 and 17% owned. We got some very good pitchers, some real high upside. Well, let's start with Chris Bubic versus the Tampa Bay Rays. Bubic been insane this season. 2.78 FIP, 2.36 over the last five. That K rate's at 25%. StatCast looks great. Now, over the long term, the splits versus lefties for the Rays is pretty bad. 234 average, 167 ISO, 317 WOBA, striking out at 23%. But over the short term, they've actually been pretty well. 260 average, over a 200 ISO, striking out at 26% though. So there is some upside here, but Bubic is going to have to deal with some bats and definitely stay away from the likes of Junior Camarino's barrel and whatnot. All in all, 26% combined K rate. I'm a little interested, not going to go overweight on Bubic, but definitely at 9K, he does carry some interest. However, I would rather Valdez at only 500 more. Our projection's much higher. We got a 5-star alert score, but he is in a tough spot versus the Phillies. But Valdez has just been insane lately. 3.15 FIP over his last 20, 2.52 over the last 5, 30% K rate over the last 5. Huge upside. He's done very well versus the Phillies in the past. 80 plate attempts. They're only hitting 194, striking out at 26%. Definitely is in an interesting spot. Don't normally like to target the Phillies, but I don't mind a little bit. Next, we got Freddie Peralta versus the Pittsburgh Pirates. Look, Freddie P has been a guy that has big time upside for years now. His K rate has been a little lower this season than what we're used to, but he's still at 26%. StatCast data is fine. Splits are more so in Freddie P's favor, but he is giving up almost a 300 average to the Pirates over the last 112 plate attempts, 24% combined K rate. He really hasn't done all that much versus the Pirates. However, his one home appearance over the last couple of years, he put up 25. All in all, I'm fine with some Freddie Peralta. It's a good matchup versus a team that's not that good, and Milwaukee is heavily favored. It's only a 7.5 game total. there's got to be some interest there. Next, we got Luis Castillo, 8.2K versus the Twins. All right, I am probably not going to have much Castillo for two reasons. One, averaging 37.5% less fantasy points while away. Second, 20.9% K rate over the last 20 starts. And then his FIP is 4.63. I just can't do it when he's been worse away and the upside just isn't totally there. So I'm sorry, Luis, but you just haven't been dealing like you normally have this year, and it's hard for me to go there. Next, we got Garrett Crochet, 11K, 17% owned versus the Angels. Huge upside spot. Angels been striking out a ton. He's averaging 42% more fantasy points away. He has a 35% K rate over the last 5, 30.9% combined K rate. He is 11K, but he is absolutely worth getting up there. I'm totally fine with paying up for some Crochet. Next, we got Strider, 10K. His velo stayed up versus the Mets last start, and once again, he was dominant. Went 6 innings, 1 earned run, 8 Ks. I'm fine going back to try and pick on the Mets, even though this is the second time they're facing the Mets in a week. Second time Strider is facing him in a week. That doesn't always go well, so you can have some worry about that. And then there's also been blow-up games where the Mets have just totally had his number. But all in all, I think Strider's in an interesting spot. Carlos Rodon, 10.7K. I think we got to talk about. We got a 20-point projection. It's versus the Reds. Reds are worse versus left-handed pitching. Rodon has been dealing definitely hitter-friendly conditions here in Cincinnati today, though. So that's the one worry. He's going to have to miss bats to really produce in this spot. But he has been 30% K rate over the last 20 starts. Now, let's get to some pivots. Ryan Nelson, 6.5K versus the Chicago White Sox. Look, we picked on the White Sox last night. They're striking out at 25% versus righties. They got a low average, low ISO. Ryan Nelson's been pretty good. 4.06 FIP over his last 20, 4.14 over the last 5, 20% K rate. The worry with him is the fact that over the last 5 starts, he's only averaging 77 pitches. When 83, 79, 84, 71, he's going to likely be in that high 70, low 80s range. But if he can be efficient, work deep in the game, rack up some Ks, then he becomes very interesting at his very depressed 6.5K price. Next, we got Tyler Anderson, 6.4K versus the Boston Red Sox. Boston Red Sox versus lefties. 248 average, 150 ISO, 307 WOBA, striking out at almost 27%. Tyler Anderson's a very, very interesting spot while he's averaging almost 40% more fantasy points at home. Red Sox haven't been hitting. They're boom bust. Anderson does not have a profile that really wows you. It's a 5.45 FIP over the last 20 and 18% K rate. But what we've seen from him for years is he has some blow up games, and that's what we're going for here. It is not a comfy spot, but Red Sox haven't been great lately. They got a lot of young guys, and the young guys trying to carry the load may be a little bit much for them right now. I have no doubt that these young players will become good, but I don't mind striking now. Anderson's been way better at home, and this is a very interesting spot versus Boston. And lastly, we got to talk about Chase Burns getting called up. Number 11 prospect. Big time upside with him. There is strikeout upside with him. He's only 8K, but in a very, very tough spot versus the Yankees. Hard to want to take a debut guy versus the Yankees, but he is one of the better prospects in all of baseball. So just wanted to talk about him. If you want to learn something on him, he's interesting, as is Taj Bradley. The upside is there for him. He's a guy that when he's on, he can get you 10Ks. So for that alone, I have some interest. But it's not the easiest spot in the world versus the Royals, who have started hitting a little bit. So just want to throw that out. Let's check out FanDuel. Highest owned over here. We got Crochet, Valdez, Peralta. Those three should be the highest owned. Very interested in all of them. We haven't talked about Ranger Suarez, and we got to touch on him. He has been dealing lately. 2.94 FIP over his last 5, 3.54 over the last 20. StatCast data is great. 55% fly balls, 54% ground balls. Ton of ground balls. That's who he is. When those ground balls are working, he is great. And he's been great lately, so I at least wanted to touch upon that. Strider, Bubic, Rodon, Suarez, all firmly in consideration here today. If you want to get really wild, I don't mind a little T. Anderson. Burns, if you want to get crazy too. A little risky, but big time upside there. Now, let's get into some stacks. All right, our highest owned stacks for the day. We got the Dodgers. Only 70% owned Dodgers versus German Marquez in Colorado is wild. We have a game total of 12, and they're giant favorites. It's a 7.2 implied total. It's going to be hard to not get a little bit of LA, but if that ownership gets too high, I will be off them just due to the ownership. Highest projected, we got Dodgers also. I guess that's no real surprise. Highest value spot, we got White Sox versus Ryan Nelson. I do like the White Sox versus Nelson a little bit better than I did yesterday. I'm not going to have a bunch of them, but if I get a little, I'm not going to be too upset about it. Highest ceiling, we got Mets versus Strider. We've seen the Mets get to Strider before. Can it happen? Yes. His velo just went up a little bit. If that stays, Strider probably does well. If that velo drops a little bit again, the Mets could absolutely crush him. Leisure is pretty much just an opener versus Arizona. I don't mind some Arizona, but we got to warn you here. Corbin Carroll's on IL. Naylor and Suarez exited yesterday's game with injuries. No clue if they're going to be in or not. I did see some early talk about Naylor probably playing today, but Suarez still totally in the air here. If those guys are playing, I like them. If they're out, it's a real tough spot for this Arizona team. They could definitely hit versus the White Sox in what looks to be a bullpen game, but they're going to miss some of their best bats. So they also may go into value range. So interesting kind of situation for those Arizona bats, but definitely interested. Tampa Bay versus Bubic. Don't love it, but don't mind it. Dodgers obviously have huge ceiling. Seattle versus Paddock. Paddock is a guy that's really good through 1 or 2 times through the lineup. If he has to face guys the third time, can get absolutely blown up, and Seattle's been swinging it, so don't mind going there. Our highest leverage spot, we got Philadelphia versus Framber, Houston versus Suarez, Minnesota versus Castillo. I don't mind that Castillo going to Minnesota versus Castillo. Castillo's been way worse away. 5.33 FIP over his last 5. Don't mind it. Seattle does have a good bullpen, though, so they are hard to put up those crooked numbers against. Milwaukee versus Heaney. Heaney, 5.4 FIP over his last 5. Struggled a little bit lately, and the splits for Milwaukee versus lefties are really, really good over the last 20. Milwaukee has some interest. Angels versus Crochet don't want to really face, but hey, they can hit a home run or two. I don't mind small stacks against a guy that throws hard. Now, let's click the teams tab, see what we got here. Dodgers, a 2-run higher implied total on anybody. Obvious interest there. Marquez hasn't been good. However, 3.65 FIP over his last 5, so he's been pitching a little bit better, but it's in Colorado. He's giving up hard contact. The bullpen's terrible. It's 7.2 implied total. Yankees at 5.2. It's Chase Burns, first major league performance. Now, he is a very good prospect, but he could absolutely get blown up. And for that reason, I don't mind having a little Yankees. But if they're getting ownership versus this type of prospect, I'm probably totally off of them. I do like, and then, Cincinnati, there's great hitting weather. in this ballpark. But then it's Rodon on the other side. It's not the best setup for those hitters to go nuts, even though we got great hitting weather. Atlanta versus the Mets versus Frankie Montas. Montas, 4.69 FIP over his last 20 starts. But I think that's even burying the lead a little bit, because in the minor leagues, over his last 18.2 innings, which was his rehab outings, he has an ERA of 12 and given up 5 home runs per 9. I absolutely love the Braves stack. I'm going to be all over them. I'm going to be super overweight on the Braves today. Colorado versus Robolisky. Don't mind a little bit. Great hitting conditions, obviously, in Colorado. I'm going to go low owned. SD versus Trevor Williams. Trevor Williams has actually been very good lately. 3.54 FIP over his last 20, 2.71 over the last 5. But the bullpen's terrible. I don't mind a little San Diego. I'm not going to go hard on him. KC versus Bradley. Bradley is boom bust. Don't mind stacking against him. Don't mind using him a little bit. And then I think the Giants are very interesting at 4.5 versus Cal Quintrell. Quintrell, 5.37 FIP over his last 20. He's been pitching good lately, though. So that's the worry there. We covered Arizona. They definitely have interest. Boston has some interest. Anderson has been getting blown up a little bit lately. However, way better at home. It's one of those spots I don't mind playing both sides. Great hitting weather in St. Louis once again. Cubs looking to bounce back in this spot. A lot of different stacks to like. As far as Milwaukee, very interesting one. As far as a low-owned pivot. Great hitting weather in Cincinnati. Chicago looks to bounce back. McGreevy has been good, but Chicago's bats can crush anybody. Definitely have some interest in there. If you want to go way down the list, White Sox, I got to talk about a little bit. St. Louis versus Tyone, a little interesting. Seattle versus Paddock. My favorite stack, got to be Dodgers and Braves in this spot. You guys have a good one. We'll be back with more tomorrow. And talk to you later. Peace. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Helps us a ton.